Hello and welcome to another knitting pod. I am Lena and I am so glad you're here. On this channel, we chat about knitting and reading and life and all sorts of other things. Thank you so much for being here today. It is mid-October here in Boulder, Colorado. And I'm just happy to be spending this time with you. If you are new here, welcome, and I hope that you find something you enjoy. Before I move on, real quick, normally I save all the non-knitting content till the end, but I do have to say really quick how utterly grateful I am to you all from the bottom of my heart for those of you who watched my last video and sent me so much overwhelming love and support and just like a literal virtual group hug. And for that, I am so grateful. You have no idea. I will chat more about that at the end of the podcast, in case you have no idea what I'm talking about and that you don't care what I'm talking about. So anyway, we are here to talk about knitting, so let's do it. Today I have less time than normal, or maybe I have the same amount of time as normal, but I just feel extraordinarily rushed because my kids have fall break from school starting tomorrow. And of course, you know, when you make plans like months ahead of time, you're like, oh, no problem. We'll just get out of town after school. And it just makes for a really, really hectic day. So I just have so much to do to get everybody packed and out the door this evening or after school today. But I wanted to tape a pod before I left. You will see this pod a few days after I tape it. But I couldn't bear to miss another week after I really have been so irregular lately. So, unnecessary preamble. That is the state of affairs. So if I'm a little like chaotic in my mind, I apologize in advance. What am I wearing? I am actually wearing two hand knits. This is the Home Camisole by Kadri. And then on top of that, I have a shawl called Meshy Twist by Stephen West. I will say first, the home camisole, I made it, I think it's been like 2 years, and I never wear it because I just don't love the way it fits. It's too deep in the neck. The armholes are too big. But I like the size in the body. I think it's so hard to find, but it's so hard to guess the right size. And sometimes, you know, the combination of the armhole depth and the neck depth is not the same as your circumference in your bust. If you knit, you know, this is a whole thing, right? Like when we knit sweaters, I actually think this is less of a problem with sweaters and more of a problem with tank tops and short sleeve tops, because if this were a sweater, it wouldn't quite matter too much if the armhole were a little bit too deep because you would have a sleeve. But when you have a tank top, the fit has to be better. So I don't know. I never wear this top, but I love the feeling of the fabric. This gray is Season Alpaca by Pearl Soho, which is 100% alpaca, and it is just gloriously soft. I love it. I had bought it originally for a hat, and this was when I had no idea what I was doing with knitting, and that making 100% alpaca hat might not be a great idea. So I ripped that out and I had a lot left from my unsuccessful hat, and I made this camisole. I ran out of the gray and I didn't want to buy any more, so I used just this navy that I had to do the I-cord edging. It's not a top I love. It's far too deep feeling in the neck, so I'm going to constantly be like pulling it up. But I did want to wear it because it's soft and I needed something soft feeling today, just because, you know, when you're a little stressed, it's like wearing a soft hand knit just gives you that little extra hug that you need in your life. And then this shawl I love so much. I run really hot generally I run hot, and if I'm feeling frazzled, I run even hotter. So I love that this is a fingering weight shawl, and it also has just like all this eyelet work on it so that it's a drapey, breathable extra layer, and I just love that. It is too warm for my liking this week, so it was the perfect shawl to wear. I don't love this yarn. I don't remember what the yarn brand was, but I bought these 3 in order to fade them out to this deep purple, but I don't love this yarn. I think I've talked about this before. I've worn this shawl before. But I think speckled variegated yarn is truly an art form. It looks like sometimes I think anyone can do it and what's the big deal, but this to me showed that it's not quite that simple. I just don't think, it's just not my favorite, but I still love this shawl. It is by Stephen West, if I didn't mention that. It wasn't my favorite shawl to knit just because each of these holes is made by, knit 2 together or whatever, and it was just brutal on my hands by the end of it. So anyway, that is all I will say about that because I have worn this shawl before. So anyway, what am I knitting? I am so excited. I always get really excited when I cast something new on that's unexpected. I get so jazzed to share it with you guys because you're my knitting friends and you get the joy of a new cast on. So I will show it to you and then talk about it because I have this bad habit, I think, of like giving you all my words before I show it to you. And I think you're like, come on, woman, can we see the knit? So this is a little baby blanket, and I already forgot the name. Yes, the Melting Marl blanket by my beloved Stephen West, and I am making a baby blanket size. It is meant to be knit with 2 strands of fingering weight yarn held together and marled, thus the name Melting Marl blanket. And it would be hard for me to explain how much fingering weight variegated yarn I have. When I first discovered hand-dyed yarn, like so many of us, I think we've all had this experience. Your brain is exploding into sparkles when you find hand-dyed yarn for the first time because it's something really special. It's so each skein is unique, and it's just, if you're like me and you love color, I went nuts, basically bought so much hedgehog fibers sock yarn that I did not need, but I have a hearty stash, y'all. And this particular batch, I'll call it, of yarn, before I learned to knit, I crocheted something and it turned out awful and I hated it. And so I've been ripping it out just like over the years, trying to salvage that yarn. And this is that yarn. So it's actually already, I'll show you. It looks like this because when I ripped it out, it was already being held double. Do you know what I mean? So it's pre-marled, if you will. So I am kind of like, don't know what color is gonna come next. If you can understand, like if I ripped out this whole blanket with yarn I had held double. So as I was ripping it out, sometimes what I tried to do, here, I'm gonna just grab this bag because I have this whole bag here. What I tried to do is kind of cut each section so that it wasn't gonna be just a huge ball and I wouldn't know what was in it. So I believe this has mostly like these 2 colors marled together, and then I separately stopped, I cut off this marl. So I can sort of tell what's there, but it's not gonna be the same as if I were starting anew with 2 balls and getting to control the marl. I don't feel like that came out super smoothly, but you know what I mean. So it's kind of, to me, like a surprise when the yarn is going to change. Like here we are, we started with this yellow. This is that same wild card color that I used to make the hat I showed you guys last week, the Harlow hat. I had used most of it for that, and so you can see only this very beginning is just that, and then it marls with this orange, and I totally forgot what this orange yarn is called. I am sorry. I want to say copper penny, but that's not right. I don't remember what it is. And then this red that's starting to show up, I don't remember the name of that either, but it's like a beautiful, funky red and pink. You know, you've heard me say this before, but I really do think Hedgehog Fibers does this style of hand-dyed yarn just really well. You know, I think she just started a whole new universe of hand-dyed yarn, in my opinion. As for the pattern, I have had my eye on it, you know, just kind of in the back of my head, in the back of my mind rather, for this exact batch of yarn. I thought it would be a great way to use it. But I knew I didn't want to make like a big size like the one he has in the sample. His size in the sample is like a couch-sized blanket, and I just felt like that was going to be an immense amount of knitting, and I wasn't sure if I'd have the joy stamina for that, if that makes sense. Like, I was just worried that I'd get to a point with that size that I would be like, oh my God, this is such a slog, and I didn't want to have that happen. I don't like sloggy knitting. We all find ourselves in the murky middle sometimes, but if you're gonna make a blanket, hand knit blanket, I feel like you're gonna definitely have to be prepared for that. So one of my dear friends who I just absolutely adore is having a baby. She is due right around Thanksgiving, and I've known I wanted to knit her something, but I just couldn't figure out what, because ever since I found out, which was very early this year, that she was pregnant, I feel like I've known I wanted to knit or something, but I also didn't want it to fall into that obligatory knitting category. I don't know if you know what I mean, but like when you have a loved one that you know you need to make them something, but it's not coming, like the emotion that you want to knit them something is there, but the excitement for the actual project is not there. That's what I had been feeling forever with regards to this friend. Like, you know, my friend Jessica was like, well, just make her like a baby hat or a little sweater. She had sent me all these ideas, but like nothing was clicking. And then just out of the complete clear blue sky, I was sitting at my son's basketball game on Saturday night at 7. Don't be jealous of my rip-roaring life. But I was sitting there and I don't know, I was knitting on something. And I don't know why, it just was like a thunderstruck moment where I was like, I'm gonna make her a little blanket. And I knew exactly which one. I knew it was the Stephen West one because I love the like chevron-y look of this. I think it's just really funky and cool. And I knew it would be small enough to keep my interest. And then once I looked at the blanket online, I mean, the pattern, I realized what I did not know was that even though it kind of looks like one pattern, one knit pattern all the way through, it's actually 4 different sections. So this first section, as you can see, has these double yarn overs that make these like elongated eyelet kind of situation. And then right here, just yesterday, I started this, what he calls, I don't know what the right and wrong side here is. And it's so hard to see when yarn is variegated. But this second section right here is called knit pearl ridges or something. And so it is really, it keeps it from getting boring to me if, you know, your yarn colors are changing and, you know, you do like, I think like this is like 15 rows or something. And then you get to do another section of about 15, 20 rows in a different pattern. So it keeps it moving. And I just think it's absolutely genius. as usual, no surprise there that a Stephen West pattern would be an utter delight to knit. What else? I wish I had written down, of course I didn't write it down, how many stitches I cast on, but I believe, so he gives you a repeat, like, I think it's like 24 stitches. And I believe I cast on like 140 something stitches. So I actually am quite happy with the size. I think it'll be really nice. Oh, and this is what I was gonna say. The reason I think I had that thunderstruck moment was last weekend, the weekend before, we had gone to their house and she had just gotten a new rug for her living room. And it was this very bright color explosion kind of situation, just very like bohemian and colorful. And I think that had planted a seed in my mind that she would really like this, because not everybody is going to be drawn to this as a baby blanket, right? Like for some reason, people love to make babies pastel colors or really neutral, elegant colors, which I guess they appreciate. But to me, it's like a baby doesn't know where its face is. So if we're making them a hand knit, it really should please the parents. So when I saw that, I thought, and she was talking about how she wished she had like a big throw for her couch, and I'm not gonna knit her a big throw, but I do believe this is big enough to like drape on the side of a couch, and it would be a colorful addition. So that is how I came to cast this on. And honestly, I have been knitting so many neutral, kind of more toned down colors. I was very, very, very excited to cast on something bright and colorful and enjoy that experience. I think when we have multiple projects, if you are the kind of knitter that has multiple projects on the needles, for me, I find a lot of joy in having a major variety in the yarns I'm using, because then if something is starting to feel kind of one note, then I can really find a lot of fresh excitement in pivoting to another project. And again, you know, we've talked about stash and how it's a double-edged sword. Like a lot of times we're haunted by our stash, like, oh my God, must bust stash. And I've made a really concerted effort not to think of it that way, because again, this yarn has been sitting in my stash forever. And once the right project comes along, you're so excited to be able to go grab this huge colorful pile of yarn and use it. And if I had given it away thinking, oh, I'm never going to be into superwash yarn again, you know, you're giving away tools in your toolbox. And if you are really a huge committed lifetime knitter like me, these moments are going to come along. Like I have this stash of mercerized cotton, y'all. It is just unbelievable how much. There are these like little mini, I think they're 10-gram balls. I had them from when I would crochet a lot of amigurumi, the little stuffed animals. And now I just have a boatload of it. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes want to give it away, because it's just lying there unused and I really don't know what I'd use it for, but I'm just gonna let it be. I have room for it and I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday I will want to knit those amigurumi things again, and I'll be thrilled to have mercerized cotton, because I really think if you are into stuffed little creatures and stuff, I was really into that when my kids were younger because they loved them. Like I would crochet like little Pokemon, and oh my God, the amount of crocheting I've done. But anyway, that is a tangent. I apologize. I don't even know what I was talking about, but I think I was talking about stash and not worrying about having a lot of yarn, because if you do knit a lot, there is a high chance that at some point that yarn is going to just click with the exact project you want to knit, and you're going to be thrilled that it was there. And I still do think I love Hedgehog Fibers, Beta Jezic. I love her Instagram. And she has little kids, and I love seeing the little marled sweaters she makes them. And that really makes me want to make another marled sweater or something for my daughter because they're just so cute in those bright colors. So anyway, the end. I'm going to stop talking about that. I feel like I'm entering rambling territory. But I am thrilled about this project. I am taking this to the mountains. I think I'm just going to take like this bag and, just find the rest of the yarn. Because like I said, I don't really know what color is going to be last in this sequence. And so that makes it hard to plan. But I would love to make a lot of progress on this over this weekend in the mountains because she's due at the end of November and I don't feel pressured. She's the most laid back person ever. And so I don't think she would care if her baby gift was a little late, but I would love it to be, not too late. So that is that. Very, very excited and into this. And, it's just nice to have a baby blanket. It's such a reasonably sized pattern to carry around with you into the world when you've got 5 minutes here or there. And so I always appreciate that. Okay, what else? What else is on my needles? I am so thrilled to tell you that I finished the body of the sweater I was making for my darling husband, the Handstolm sweater. It is enormous. I mean, really and truly, I can't really get the whole thing in the frame because it's so long. He's a very tall man. This is the Handstolm sweater by Petite Knit. I am knitting it for the millionth time. I feel like I've said this a million times. Sandnes Garn Double Sunday. It is a non-superwash yarn, which I really wanted for this particular project because I wanted it to not risk stretching out because it is a very large garment. It's been a pleasure to work with. I have no complaints. It is just, there are few joys in life greater than working on something and then seeing the person try it on and seeing a beautiful fit and a beautiful garment. And that's what it's been. It's just been such a treat to see him try it on and how happy it makes him. And he had to try it on a lot because I wanted to make sure the size was just spot on. And I really think it is. So it's the most simple sweater for somebody who is most certainly not a fancy person. So he just wanted a straight stockinette sweater. And I honestly thought it was never going to end. Is so much knitting. I've just been trugging along on this and I'm thrilled to have cast on the first sleeve. And comparatively, I feel like the sleeve is going by so fast. Here's my little first sleeve. I did want to share with you guys that I've shown you this before. My little shorty needles by Xiaogu. These are let's see, this has US 4 through 8, and I bought these a long time ago. I've told you guys this before. I bought these a long time ago before I knew how to do magic loop. And then I shortly thereafter, I realized at that time when I got these, I found the tips to be incredibly difficult to work with. Let me show you. This is the longer tip. This is the 3-inch tip. And then it also comes with an entire set of the same size in 2-inch tips. And I believe it comes in 2 cord sizes too. So you can really mix and match. When I first got these, I found holding the needles close to impossible. I was still a new knitter and I couldn't do it. I tried and I couldn't do it. And therefore I was forced to do magic loop at some point. And then after doing magic loop for a long time, I love magic loop, but I have to say, despite my best efforts, I always find there's a slight tension issue in that, when you, in the stitches, when you switch sides. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's hard to explain when I have nothing to show you on Magic Loop, but you know, when you turn it around and then you pull the long cord and then you start knitting, inevitably there's just some weird tensioning issue. And it's one thing in like a small hat or something for myself, I don't care. But this is like a really requested, desired garment. It's a huge garment. So if there was any laddering in the sleeves, I would have been really irritated. Especially because in a pure stockinette, it's gonna really show if you've got even a little wonkiness there. And it's kind of hard to bully those stitches in wet blocking, even, you know, with an aggressive wet blocking. So long story short, I was absolutely thrilled that the right size was in here for me. And oh my gosh, it's almost comical to me now because how was it so hard to knit with these? Like now I'm like, I don't even know what the problem could have been. I mean, I guess I've just gotten a lot more comfortable with knitting now, but I just love doing the sleeves with this. And I know, you know, you're gonna decrease. You can see this is how I mark my decreases. I'll be decreasing, I think it's like every 12 to 15 rounds. You know, I'm kind of probably will decrease at a slower rate than she recommends just because I don't know, he has really long arms and I don't want them to taper too fast. But when you do get down even smaller, you can switch. I'm going to show you real quick. These are just the cutest needles, you guys. I have to say they don't stay in this pouch super well. Oh, shocking. They actually stayed. But then you can switch to these itsy bitsy 2-inch. And how cute are these, first of all? Also, what you can do is switch just one of these. Like I would leave the longer one in my right hand since that's the hand doing the work, and then put the shorter one on the left. That way you're getting 1 inch less in your circumference of this thing, and you've got more to hold on than this. I mean, this is like hobbit knitting, y'all. I mean, I do think this would possibly cause a little extra tension in your hands, but you know, I might still have to drop down to Magic Loop at the very end, but that's fine. I'm going to try to get as far as I humanly can with these shorties. They sell another set separately of the like size 1 to 3 or whatever. They sell several sets of these. I think this was like $70, which is pretty steep. And I was super pissed at myself for ordering these and not using them for so long, but now I have to say I love them. That is my absolutely preferred way to knit sleeves. So if you Chow is just my go-to. I cannot do other needles because the cord just is incomparable to me. I know there's lots of different flexi flips and flippity flops and all sorts of new kind of double pointed Magic Loop adjacent ways to knit small circumference. I would love to know if those have worked for you guys. I've always wanted to try them, but it's like, you know, that everything is expensive. Knitting supplies are expensive, and you know, I don't like to just accumulate things just to accumulate them. But that being said, if you had those flexi flips, you wouldn't have to worry about the cords and everything because it would allow you to go down in circumference. Okay, I feel like I've said circumference enough times to make this almost a geometry class. Okay, that is all. I'm hoping to make progress on the sleeve, possibly in the car on the way up. We're leaving fairly late, so I do feel like it might get dark and I won't be able to do much car knitting, which would be so sad. But alas, it's only 2 hours, so not so bad. What else? One more update on a current project that you've already seen. You know, when the very rare times that like you're playing Yarn Chicken and then you just nail it and like everything works out, that is the best feeling ever. And that is where I found myself this week on my half and half triangles wrap. I had a skein of half used pink pop, the linen quilt, which is what this is, in my stash from previous years. And then when my daughter, hold on, pause. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, because I've talked about this before, but some of you might not have seen that episode. This is the half and half triangles wrap by Pearl Soho, a free pattern on their website, which was super hyped and was like the it girl for a year when everybody and their dog was making this. I did not jump on that bandwagon until way later, this summer to be precise. And I'm making this for my daughter because I think it is a classic lifetime piece because it is simple and the yarn is durable and soft and classic and it's just perfect. It was a perfect, like I just knew I wanted to make it for her. So she picked these colors. She picked Pink Pop as her first color and I had a partial skein of that. And I was gonna make the bigger size, which requires, I believe, 2.5 skeins. So I only ordered 2 skeins of the Pink Pop because I did not want to just, I wanted to use the partial skein I had. But of course, in true me fashion, I did not weigh it to see if I would have enough or if I should buy another one. So I finished it and it occurred to me far too late that I wasn't even sure I was going to have enough Pink Pop, but I reasoned that I could always order another skein, but I didn't want to. You know what I mean? Like when it's I think why none of our stashes ever are reduced, because if we're using something in the stash, a lot of times there's not enough, so then we end up buying more, and this is how it seems like it reproduces in captivity. But this, y'all, I finished with, I'm going to show you how much I have left. This much left. It's unbelievable. I was literally just cheering because it just felt so good to get done with it and be done with it and just nailed that yardage completely inadvertently. It was not my skillful manipulation of my stash. This is her second color, and I always forget this color's name, but I think it's Robin Eggs Blue or it's Pale Blue, but it's something like that. I really do think it's Robin's Egg Blue, which is this icy, barely there color that I absolutely love. I heard some advice on the Million Podcasts about this to use the color you like the most last. So I did save this because I'd never worked with this color and I've worked with this color a lot. So I'm very excited to cast on the second half. I haven't done so yet because I have not had time to look up the tutorial because I did German short rows instead of wrap and turns. And I also slipped the first stitch of the border to make it like a nice even edge. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see. And so I know the next thing I have to do is close all the short rows with this but then when you start the second half, it's a little bit different than the first half. And I know I need to sit down with a video and just figure it out. So I'm going to take this to the mountains too. We're only going for 5 days and I'm taking enough knitting for 5 weeks. But I do end up getting a lot of time to knit up there and I love it. This is why I'm so excited. So these are the colors and I love them. I think they're so her. She's got her fiery pink punch side and then her cool, mellow, chill side. And I think it represents her and I think it'll bring her years of coziness. So this is a long-term project that has no deadline from my point of view, but I like to keep it moving. I like to give everything on my needles some love every couple of days at least, because then they feel like those wheels are churning in my mind and I'm participating in my projects. Okay, guys, that's all the knitting content I have for you today. Pivoting to life, I wanted to circle back with what I started, which was the fact that, last week I had told you guys how much I had been struggling with just, how to say it. It's every time I start talking about it, it's so complicated in my mind that I think my words get kind of twisted in my own brain. But I started this channel with the intention of connection. That was always my goal, was connecting with the people. And another goal of mine was to show up very authentically in order. I just wanted to show you my whole self and not an aspect of myself. I think one of the things that makes social media very difficult for a lot of people to participate in is that everybody's life looks perfect, and the only thing they present to you is like the wonderful things. And even though we all know that social media is just a representation of whatever that person has curated to show you, it's hard to keep that in mind and not compare their Instagram or Facebook persona to your entire life. Like, all your whole self and your struggles and your good side or your happy pieces. But when you look at someone and you only see their happy pieces, it is really hard for even the most self-aware person to remember that you're seeing a curated image of someone and then not therefore feel bad about yourself for all your struggles. I was actively coming into this knowing I was going to be showing you the real spectrum of my life, because I'd never want to contribute to anyone feeling like their life is somehow not just like that. We all aren't living the same, spectrum of experiences. We all have wonderful moments and we all have struggles. That all was in my intention. And every time I showed up to podcast, that's what was my guiding light. But, it is very hard when it is such a one-sided endeavor to not start slipping into just seeing the metrics and evaluating your success by a number, or a number of views, or a number of thumbs up, or a number of likes, or whatever it may be on whatever social media. And what you guys did for me last week was affirm my intention. You affirmed that you are there, you are receiving my voice as I intend it to be received. You are hearing the things I'm saying. And even though I have zero expectation of you guys to always be commenting, and I hope that doesn't seem like something I need from you. It is not. I love your comments, but I do not expect or need you guys to validate through comments. But you guys showed up so authentically last week after I posted my struggle with being on YouTube and whether to continue or not. You showed up with so much love, and it just made me realize, like, the numbers are just such a stupid way to measure anything. And from now on, if I ever find myself slipping back into that, I'm just going to go back to your comments and the authentic, connection we have through this medium, the authentic, even though you often aren't able to talk back to me, so many of you do, and I feel so much of your energy and your love. And I don't know, I'm just so, so, so grateful to you all for reminding me, number one, why I started doing this, and number two, that the connection is there, the connection is real, and that there is a point in continuing on. And this project has been so, this project being this YouTube podcast has meant so much to me. It has been so fulfilling, and it's just brought me true, like my heart is just filled every time I podcast, that the thought of stopping was devastating to me. It would have left such a hole in my heart. So thank you for listening, because I have to say, after I taped that episode, I was walking around my house like, I feel like that was just so, it was so much, and it could be perceived as so messy to share those feelings. I don't think I shared them particularly eloquently, because it's just hard to share what's truly in your heart when it's painful. It's hard to share that eloquently. But I go back to what made me click upload was that my intention was to be transparent. And it's easy to share struggles that you've conquered. It's a lot harder to share active struggles where you're truly being vulnerable in the present moment. But to be true to myself and my intention, I knew I had to do it. And, one time years ago, a dear friend of mine, she's the kind of person that is just absolutely elegant and calm under pressure. Like, she's that like royal family level of pleasant face, like very Kate Middleton in the like, no, everything is fine. I am in this skirt suit and I feel wonderful about everything. And I was asking her one time, I was like, I don't know how you're always so like together, like your mind and everything is just always, you just never seem flustered or rattled. And she said to me, oh, honey, I'm like a duck. Like when a duck is swimming in a lake, all you see is like this calm, beautiful thing floating across the surface. But what's happening under the surface is like a frantic paddling, right? Like it would look a lot less smooth and peaceful than the part we see. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, how does that serve anybody for us to walk around being ducks on a placid pond? I always want to show my frantic paddling under the water, because yes, sometimes I am floating along and I feel good and I'm not frantically paddling, but most of the time my feet are paddling like hell and I'm exhausted by the time it's like 8 p.m. because all day long I've been paddling. And so last week, I really do feel like it was just showing you the frantic paddling in the water, and you guys, I don't know, you just showed up in a way that made me realize how important it is to show up with vulnerability truly, because the way I came out of my struggle, it would never, even if I had not told you guys what was happening and I'd kept going, I would have been harboring this internal angst and thinking, should I not? Should I recalibrate? Should I be different? But by being honest with you and showing you the struggle, you heard me, you saw me, and now that struggle is truly resolved in my heart, and I can go forth with peace and authenticity in a way that I totally couldn't have. I really think if I hadn't shared, my joy in this space would have been robbed. So I know that was a lot, but I had to tell you how much it meant to me and how much I get it. It's hard to show up everywhere. It's not even appropriate to show up everywhere with your whole heart on your sleeve. But try to show up with your heart on your sleeve some places, right? Like with your dear friends, with your family, like show the struggle, show the paddling under the water, because it lets everybody else be imperfect in their life. The last thing I will say is I have to address this because I've been seeing you know how sometimes on Instagram you get all these quotes and you kind of see the same quotes over and over? I saw this quote over and over that said, and I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, but it was almost this. It was, if the price is your peace of mind, the price is too high. And that sounds really wise and pithy and like concise and like wisdom you can keep in your back pocket. But I have been thinking about that so much over the last month. And I firmly disagree with that statement. Like, if I think about it, every single thing in my life that I value costs me my peace of mind, like 50% of the time at least. Like, children? Are you kidding me? Like, there would be no children in this world if peace of mind was the thing we are weighing. Like, have a child and kiss your peace of mind goodbye. Any endeavor, anything we do is constantly costing us our peace of mind. And that's kind of where I was with the pod, was like, it's costing me my peace of mind. But what I realized is, when your peace of mind is disrupted, you have two choices. You can stop doing the thing, or you can dive in and struggle through. And then your capacity for peace of mind becomes broader and sturdier and stronger and wider. And I think this is the wisdom of aging, is that you've struggled through so much that you're far less likely to be rattled. And even when you are, you can get back on your feet quicker. So I respectfully disagree. And yes, sometimes the price is too high and we have to quit, of course. But I think the struggle is where the growth is, and the struggle is what leads to strength. And when things are good and easy and everything is being accomplished and you're just chugging along in peace, a lot of times we're not growing. And I think at the end of the day, the only thing we're here to do is to grow and become stronger so we can guide the people underneath us, not underneath us, but younger than us, that are coming up with some wisdom to be stronger. Anyway, thank you for being incredible humans. I just feel so utterly grateful to connect with so many of you all over the world. It is truly a gift. I'm a lucky lady. Okay, I shall move on real quick to talk about a couple of things I've been consuming that have been just giving me so much of the best kind of joy. The first is the Beckham documentary on Netflix. I think it might just be called Beckham, but I don't know. I don't remember, but it's on Netflix. I believe it's like 4 episodes that are fairly long. They're like an hour to an hour and a half. They're about David Beckham and his family, and it follows him from childhood through the present day. And I mean, David Beckham has just kind of been in the background of public people forever. He's a good-looking soccer player, was like the basic thing I knew about him. That he was married to Victoria, Posh Spice. I'm not a soccer person. I live in the States. Soccer's not a huge thing here, really. It's just, I never thought twice about him. It was just such a fantastic documentary, and I felt so in awe of him and his absolute, first of all, talent and work ethic to become the man he is as a player, and then just the struggles I had no idea about. If you guys live in Europe, the UK specifically, maybe you know more about all the struggles he's been through. It's just in the public eye, I swear to God, being a public figure, it is not for the faint of heart. It is no joke. I don't know how anybody continues it to exist with that level of scrutiny for everything you do. And my goodness, it is the mob mentality that can happen with people, both in terms of how intensely they can love a public person and then how intensely they can want to tear that person down without seeing the humanity of that person. Woo, it was a trip. I highly suggest that podcast. Entertaining, not podcast, that documentary. It was entertaining, it was thought provoking, it was everything. I loved it. So if you are looking for, you know, a discrete kind of chunk of entertainment, highly recommend that. One of my friends told me that the fall of the House of Usher is pretty good, so we might watch that next on Netflix, I believe. I read the memoir of the actress Kerry Washington. It's called Thicker Than Water. It was pretty good. Do I think it's like mind blowing and a must read? I don't. I did think it was interesting, and there was a lot in there about, you know, her struggles as a creative, as a, you know, a Black woman in a very not very diverse industry. Just that kind of struggle was really fascinating. She's very eloquent. I listened to it, and she has a beautiful voice, and she's the narrator. So I finished that. Again, I'm not like going to give it a huge recommendation, but if you want to read it, if you're a fan of hers, I do think it's an entertaining book. I've also downloaded Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. It is not, I am not as fully into it yet as I was with Covenant of Water. I think I was just missing that book still, so I wanted to re-enter one of his worlds. It's good. It's super long, so it'll take me a long time to get through it, but it doesn't have the same just all-enveloping world of Covenant that I think so many of us loved. So yeah, I will have some podcast recommendations for you next week, because whenever we drive into the mountains, we listen to some pods. So I look forward to that. And other than that, I think that is all for today. Like I said, it's midweek for me, but when I release this, I'm planning to release it on Friday. So I hope you have a fabulous weekend. Take care of yourself. I know the state of the world is distressing, to say the least. It is chaotic. It is almost impossible to process. So I constantly try to be aware of myself not over consuming news. I love news and like podcast news, or I don't know how to, not just news, but kind of interviews with, you know, people that are experts in X, Y, or Z, and it can just really oversaturate you. And I think sometimes we think we are, by engaging, we're doing something, and it's such a helpless feeling time that we feel like worrying and being angsty about the world is doing something. But I do think sometimes it becomes too much, and it's really important to take a break, to give yourself time away, like a lot of time, like the entire weekend maybe, to not listen and to just be and to reset and to let your nervous system kind of come down, so that you're not always operating on the like panic level of the world is ending, because I think that's what it starts to feel like. So take care of yourself, knit, give yourself some joy, fill your own bucket. The world will still be there, and it needs you from a calm and peaceful place. It doesn't need you from, you know, that high anxiety place. So that is all I would say about that. I'm so happy to have had this last hour with you. I hope you are very well, and I will see you soon. Bye.